This is Professor Michael Chapman. I'm one of the most experienced IVF doctors in Australia. I believe that an important part that I can contribute is to educate patients in relation to fertility, infertility, and all that involves. These series of podcasts help to educate you. I hope they are helpful to you. If you wish to know more, however, I'm more than happy to have you contact me via email, which is profmchapman@gmail.com, or make an appointment to see me on 9138 4222. So, how can we improve the chances of success? I mean, that's what we're aiming at. We've been pretty good over the years. As I've talked on many occasions, when I started doing IVF, if we got a 10% per embryo transfer success, even if we put 2 or 3 embryos back, we thought we were doing well. Today, putting 1 embryo back, we expect, if you're under 38, to have a 35 to 40% chance of getting a live baby. The things we can do to improve that chances of success is to actually genetically test each embryo, because even at the age of 30, a substantial number, 40% of all embryos that look beautiful under the microscope are actually genetically abnormal. Now, if we can exclude those, when we put an embryo back in a 30-year-old and we know that it's a euploid embryo, the pregnancy rate jumps to not 35 to 40%, but up to 55 to 60%. So we can improve it by genetically not sequencing as such, but counting the number of chromosomes in the embryo. Going beyond that, because that 60% is still not 100%, research is looking at other ways of defining more carefully what the genetic makeup of an embryo is, but that's still in the sort of experimental stage at this stage. You mentioned the possibility that time-lapse would improve the situation. And certainly the early data from time-lapse incubators, and by that what I mean, what happens in a time-lapse incubator is that the embryo is looked at and photographed every 15 minutes from the time of fertilization through to the creation of a day 5 blastocyst. And the way in which the cells divide was always thought to actually give us a hint as to what were the good embryos and the bad embryos. Now, as time goes on and the initial enthusiasm and results suggesting that there was a major benefit of time-lapse probably has disappeared. And perhaps the reason that time-lapse, what I call embryoscopes, improve pregnancy rates is not because we can pick the patterns that might indicate a good embryo. They are more likely due to the fact that we don't take the embryos out into the big change of environment when we take them out of the warm carbon dioxide and temperature controlled incubators into to look under the microscope and say this is a good embryo on day 3 or not. So we can now leave them in the embryoscope because we can actually see it without touching them. And it's probably that consistency of incubation that has helped improve the pregnancy rates, not necessarily the actual technology of the time-lapse. Albeit it's lovely to see, and I know some clinics actually provide videos of people's embryos and they can log on and watch their embryos growing. But it's in terms of actually making a difference to the outcome and being able to choose the best embryo, it really hasn't turned out to have much value. What has been done is to add artificial intelligence to those images, and perhaps that will help us pick the best embryo. However, what we've got to remember is we're never going to throw away a good embryo. So ultimately, Even if AI told us that one was better than another, at the end of the day, we're going to end up putting them one by one. We're going to put all of them back until we get the right embryo. It may help in the time it takes to get to pregnancy, but ultimately it doesn't change the cumulative pregnancy rate from one cycle.
And don't forget that you can access all the previous episodes by going to our website www.theivfjourney.com and select IVF Journey podcast from the navigation menu.